So today we are going to cover a little bit about Access 2013 web apps, in particular how to convert a desktop backend database to a web app, and then how to link to that web app from your desktop's front end. And then if time allows, we'll go into how to edit and make copies of your web app so that you might move it to a different location. And I think we'll probably have to delay this last one until another session, but also how to link to a web app from SQL Server so that you can extend the SQL side of a web app. So the first thing about how to convert a backend desktop database to a web app to look at is what data types are you using in your current backend database. I've listed the field types that are allowed currently in web databases, and the conversion from access types happens automatically, and so far in my experience is pretty good. But you'll notice that there are a few field types that are not here, things like OEL objects. So in general, the fancier your field types are, the more you will need to change your data structure before you actually do the import and change over to a web app backend. You will get warnings, about the specific types that it can't convert before the conversion. So it's not like it is much more friendly than like converting to SQL has been, in that doesn't really happen till pretty far into the process. It's more of upfront warnings. But your first step should be to double check your field types in your tables and make sure that you're going to be good. The second piece that you need to do before you convert your backend desktop database to a web app is to make sure that you have an Office 365 plan that's available to do Access apps. Those plans have to be capable of hosting Access web databases, which means it has to include an internet site, intranet site, and the Access software. Current plans that meet that requirement are the Enterprise E plans. There's an E3 plan, an E4 plan, and supposedly there's an E5 plan coming by the end of the year. And at this time, I just want to clarify the difference and how many users you might need in the two different types of web apps. If you are going to have a web app that you are hosting and you're using it as a front end as well, and your users are going to be logging onto your web app itself to make changes to your data, to view the actual screens and forms in your web app, then each user that uses that web app needs to have a site license, or a seat license, rather. But if you are going to be using the Access Web database just as a back end and you're going to be using a desktop front end, you really technically only need one seat to do that. So, for example, if you were a company and you had a current desktop front end that your back end was on a network location and you wanted to move that to a web app back end, you would technically only need one seat to do that because you are allowed to share that web app with as many users as you want to. And you'll see a little bit as we do this how that part is done. So that's very nice in some cases in others, you're obviously going to need a seat for each user if you're going to be maybe doing a hybrid or something like that, where they enter some information on the web app itself and perhaps reporting or other things as a front end. So the steps in converting a back-end desktop database to a web app are listed here, and I am going to also pull in some other things here. The actual database that I'm going to be converting is this Ops Manager table database. This is the front end to the database, and this is the back end. So in a standard desktop configuration, this front end would have linked pointers to the tables in the back end. So in order to bring this into an Access web app, we are going to open Access. And then you're going to select Custom Web App, and you're going to name it. And then if you've done this before, you will have available locations like I do here. If you haven't, then this area here will be blank, and you will put your web location in this part right here. And how you find out what that is you go to your Office 365 site, and I'm not going to cover how to set that up or anything like that. But if you go to your site itself and you go to the web address in your site, you will want to copy that, and then you will want to delete everything that is after, or everything that is, oh no, everything that's after the, if I can get it to refresh here. Sorry about that. Everything up until the layout section. So here where it says the HTTPS barnesbusiness.sharepoint.com/layouts, it's just that front part that you actually need in that. So that's actually this one. And then you hit Create. And that takes just a second, and it actually will create a web app called, in this case, Ops Table Backend on your location. And it will go to that. Okay, so you see up here in the header that it's actually open in this location. And then you're going to, instead of, if you've ever done this before, instead of adding things or tables using one of the templates or something like that, you're going to create a table from an existing data source. In this case, it will be Access. And then you browse to your existing backend. Which is right here. You choose that and open it. And then you select all the tables that are in there and OK. And then it imports your data. And here's where if there's any problems or issues, it will give you messages indicating warnings that it can't do a particular field. I do have those things all listed right here. in this, which will be available afterwards. And then when it's all finished, you're going to want to hit the close button, and then you're going to go back to step 1 and review the types that it has imported in here, and make sure that it's got all your fields and it looks correctly. And it does tell you as it's doing so, what it's doing, so it does change and let you know that it's going on here. And I don't know if you can see here, but these are appearing over here as they happen. It's almost done here because and if there were any issues, it would list them right here. And just like if you were creating these tables from a template or by scratch, each table you have listed or created or imported, it does do a list view and a data sheet view for them. But if you're using this as a back end, you will not be using that. So then next step is how to link to that new web app from your desktop front end. So if you have this open in the desktop version, which is what happens when you first have created it, you want to go to your File tab, and then you want to go to your connections right here and manage them. And the first thing you want to do is allow connections to the database. If you are just going to be using this yourself, then the safer option to choose is to allow connections just from this location, and that will actually take your IP address and allow that. So if you are going to be using this for multiple users, though, you will want to select from any location, and essentially what that does is allows anyone that has the links, correct links to your database to link to it. So it's not as secure, but as you can see from some of these names, no one is going to guess any of this information. It's quite obscure. If you need to, you would put added security in it. Then the next step that you want to do is actually enable the connections. And you have two choices. You can do read-only connections, which I would advise if you're doing just a reporting front end, or you can do a read-write connection. And in this case, this is a full desktop with read and write needs. It's not just a reporting desktop application that I'm connected to. So I would select this Enable Read-Write connection. It takes just a second to do that. And then you go back again here and you view the read-write connection information. And so you would be using this information that's listed here, the server, the database, the username and password, for your table connections in your front end. So again, here, this is what we've got. We've enabled the connection, we're viewing them, and then in our front end, we want to go to the front end. And this is our front end. Got various forms, etc., and tables. These are actually probably connected to a different location at this point. But if you were import or changing an existing desktop front end, you would probably see a different symbol here. It wouldn't be an ODBC symbol possibly because it would be a direct link, but that will change as you actually do the update. The key thing that you need to hook a front end up to a back end on the web is, for starters, your opening screen needs to be some type of screen that does not have any data connected to it. So what I did in this instance is I created a brand new screen, and I called it a splash screen. And that screen, its purpose is to open up and to properties over here, to have an on-open event that actually does the linking to the back end, and then it will, after that, it will open up the normal main menu, which I think in this database is Form Home, and then close itself when it's done. So if we look at the code for the on-open event here, in the form itself, it calls a reset connection subroutine, which I'm going to show you in just a minute. Then it opens the other starting point, or original starting point form Home, and then it closes itself. So that's all we have on the form open event. The reset connection code simply goes in, and with the current database, it creates a connection string, and then it goes through the table definitions, and it recreates most of the table definitions. And here on this line, it goes and it makes sure that the front end is ODBC, and the table name does not start with a tilde sign or MSys, because those would be system tables that are probably hidden in your case, but they are there. And it replaces the connection string with the connection string that you create up here, and then refreshes the link to it. So that's all it does. The tricky part here is to get this SQL Connect string correct. And to do that, what you need to do is replace, or you need to make sure that the driver here is SQL Server Native Client 11.0, and then you replace the server value with the server from your database here. So this line right here is the server line. You just copy and paste that from your connection information into the area here in the server. And then you want to do the same thing with the user ID. That is this username here, this whole username. You copy that into here. And I'm going to go ahead and do this as we're doing it so we can see it working. Sorry. And you do want the semicolons to stay. And there's the user ID. And then you have a password. Whoops. And again, they're really pretty and hard to crack. And then you have your database. And I think that the user ID has to have the database in it too, if I remember right. Let me just double check here. Okay, so for the user ID, it's actually the syntax is the username at server. So you actually have to use the username, and then at the server, like that. Okay, and then you would save that. And then let's see it work here. I'm going to close this. And then I'm going to open it up again. It'll start its little form. All right, what's going on? Make sure I got them all copied over correctly here. I think I didn't get all this copied. Missing a few letters apparently in this one. Okay, let's start this over. There we go. So it's refreshing now. And then it opened up. So just to kind of to redo it again here now that I got that fixed, then it just goes in and it relinks up those tables and open up the main database here. And that's it. Let's see what else we want to cover here. Okay, let's see. How are we doing, Juan? I noticed you've got several comments and stuff going back and forth here. Are there issues that we need to address right now?
No, I've been making comments as you do things like where to obtain, for example, client 11 to install it because it's the best client to use with Access and SQL Server.
Okay.
And I put a link on that and making general comments on the VBA. When you store the password in the VBA, you really want to be careful with that because you want to harden your application so somebody cannot use the shift key to bypass your startup code, for example, and you go into VBA or even use an ACCDE format so that it gets encrypted in there, right, so that they count in your password. But all those methods can still be overcome by an expert like me. I can overcome all those. And so the easiest way would be to encrypt the VBA code and the password in the VBA code. And we use that method here, but I can't for the life of me find a link to the web where that method is explained. So that might be a good topic we can have for lunchtime one of these days.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I guess my standard practice is to always only release the executable runtime version for users. It's just much more secure anyway. I don't want them going in and messing with stuff and trying to think that they can change something and then coming back to me and saying, oh, your program doesn't work well because they've changed it. So I almost always release executables exclusively.
Yeah, and for 99.999% of the population, they won't be able to get around that.
Right. But it's good practice anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So do we have any other questions, or should I proceed with more in the presentation? I don't want to run us too long.
A couple questions for you. We do need to wrap up before the quarter hour, but we still have 15 minutes left. But one of the things I wanted to ask you was, I want you to clarify something for me. If I'm going to be using just a pure backend for a web app, for an Access application that has traditional front end, I only need one license, you said, right?
That is correct.
Now, will users be able to edit data, add records, delete records from a traditional Access front end with the data in the cloud?
Yes, they will.
Okay, and then the other thing is, if I have a web app that's being used by 5 users, each one of them will need their own license then in Office 365.
Yeah, and the key difference there is, are they going to be signing on to the web app itself and using the web app's interface, the online interface, or are they going to be accessing the web data from a front end? And that's the separation. Because if they are going to be logging in online and using the UI for the web app, then they need their own seat. And they need to have access to that web app on your site. Both of those things.
When Microsoft first rolled this out, they had a 500-seat limit, which is fantastic. They since changed their policy on seats available.
So I'm sorry, I didn't really understand that question.
You know, when Access Web Apps first came out, you could buy just one Access Office 365 account, and then you can invite users to use the Access Web App, up to 500 of them. I'm wondering if they changed their policy on that.
Well, that's a good point. I don't know. I guess I had not heard that you could invite them to use your web app itself online. That's a good follow-up because, policies have been changing over the last couple of years here. So I will see if I can find out for the next time what the policy is on that.
No, well, I'll research that while you continue with the great presentation. This is a great topic. I love this topic.
All right, great. So the next steps here are, how do you edit the web app that you have and then make copies of it? So to edit it, what we're seeing right here, right now, it is open in the desktop version. That's what happens when you create from Access itself. So I'm going to go ahead and close the web app here, and then I'm going to go back to my site, and I'm going to go to Site Contents, which is where the web apps are stored. And here's our brand new ops table backend. And so I'm just going to click on that to open it. And that will view it then like we kind of saw it in the background, I believe, when we were uploading. Well, similar, I guess, where you see all the tables here and you see the list and data sheet. If you actually want to edit this, like if you want to go in now and add a field to a table or a new table or something like that, once you've imported it, then you would use the little toolbar at the top right here, and customize that in Access. And what that does is opens that again in your desktop version. So you could save this to like a folder or something and open from there. And notice the extension AccessUserGroups, which stands for Access Web Database. I always just open it, which essentially brings it into memory or probably a local working temporary directory, and then edit it there. And one of the important things to realize when you're doing this is any changes you make in this, for example, if you go in here and you go to a setting here and you change it, or you go in to edit your table and you change a field length or add a field or whatever, the minute you save it here in Access, I think I just didn't hit anything, the minute you save it by Xing out here, it refreshes that back to your live web app itself. So what you don't want to be doing if you've got a production database is making changes live in your production database without changing it. You would want to have a copy of this. That's your test version. You would want to get all your kinks worked out and changes together and organized, and then you would release those changes in an organized manner to production. So it's very important to realize that while you're on here on a desktop version, you still are working on a live copy with a web database. So you do changes very similar to how you would do it in a desktop application. It does look a little bit different. They are, let's see, if you haven't looked at it before, let's look at like a lookup here. I think this one's got one. Okay, so lookups, maybe not quite as self-explanatory as it used to be. We used to have like a general tab, and we would have another tab over here. You actually have to and look at it working. It's working on something. You actually have to go to the Design tab here. I apologize for my computer sitting here waiting. You have to go to the Design tab to look at the lookups, and you go like to the Modify Lookups area for lookups. So you can then make any changes you need to. Again, all saves you make, push the changes back to the web. Once you're in there, I'm sorry, I just clicked. But once you're in there and you've changed them, if you happen to be on your online version as well, you actually can't see those changes until you hit this again, and that will refresh the whole system from what's there. But they are live. If somebody else was in there, that might mess them up. So it's best to segregate that a little bit. How do you make a copy of your web app? Because obviously if you're going to have a test version, you want to do so. You might want to have a scenario. For instance, this particular application that I'm using as an example, the gentleman who first developed the application is a consultant, and he has different clients, and they all use the same services from him. And he is keeping their data separated because they each have a separate back end, their own back end for each client database on his Access site, and then he will deploy the same front end connected to different back ends. So that's another reason to make a copy of a web app. So to make a copy of the web app, you would pull it up in your front-end client, like we have it here. And then you go to the File menu, and make sure I get it right. And then you go to Save As, and you want to save it as a new app down here. You title it however you want to. I'm going to do maybe Ops Manager Template. I hit OK. And you set where you want to save it. I'm going to go back to my presentations folder here and save that. And when it's doing that, it's saving that as an app data package. And let's take a look here at the folder. It's showing up here. Okay, and so it created this right here. It's not a large file. Size 99K versus the original, here was 100 or 1092. There is, I think, I remember right. Oh, you browse to where you fill it in, and there's actually an option to include all data in there. And I think I did not choose that. I think that right here is the checkbox. The default is not to include the data. You could include the data in there because I was doing this as a template. I did not. But then obviously you've got a little bit bigger data package if you include your data. So this is kind of like, copying tables with or without the data in them, that kind of thing. So that's how you make a local copy of what's called an app package. And then you take the results of that and you upload that to your SharePoint site. And you can actually, once you have it in an app package, you can rename it there. You could call it something else there, make copies of it and name them with different names or whatever. But from your site contents then, let's see if I can get this up to my site. From your site contents, you want to select Add an App, and this part just is not, it's not very self-explanatory, or I had to Google this the first time because it just did not seem right. And then up here in Find, you type in Access and hit Enter. And then you select Access App, which is just a type of app. And then instead of creating a new Access app from scratch, which is an option, you want to upload an Access app package. And then you simply browse to your package. And that again is this one here, the app file. And then hit Create. And it will create a brand new copy here of the Access app. It will be identical to the ops table backend that we had created before, but it will be, in this case, without tables, or without the data in the tables. And as you see, it's still working on it here. It's in blue as opposed to in red. So it takes a minute to actually work. And then I think it's ready. We will be able to open it. See if I can refresh this. And so it's going to take a second to do that, but that's how you actually copy an app. Oh, there we go. It's ready. Takes a little time, but not too bad. And what it's doing in the back end is, because this is what happens when you have an Access web app, is it's actually in your SharePoint site, it's actually going in to an Azure SQL site and creating a brand new Azure SQL database and, setting up your tables. It's probably running create table, query, syntax and that kind of thing to set that up. And so we have a whole new Azure SQL database in your website area, your SharePoint website area, that is being created. And that's why it takes, a minute or two to actually do that. So now we have the Ops Manager template. It looks just like the other, except for the fact that it has no data. So that's it. And again, the next step then would be how to link to it, and we'll cover that next time because we're at about quarter till here, and I want to give you a chance to ask any other questions that you have. So I'll open up the floor for questions. If you have specific questions and you haven't typed them out and one has not answered them, feel free to unmute yourself and ask those.
Great. Thank you so much, Maria. All right. So at this point, I did leave in the comments that I found some information online. Apparently, the limit now is 10,000 users, although if you have a 10,000 user app, please let me know. I'd like to see that. And the limitation is they need a live ID. So if you invite a client, for example, Jim at 3m.com, he's got to go and associate Jim at 3m.com with a live ID at Microsoft so you can then log into your Access web app. So it's really nice that you can create an Access web app with just a simple seat on Office 365 for only a few dollars a month, for $11, $13 a month, and create an application that's going to be used by hundreds. Just a wonderful concept there. As to the performance of applications by hundreds of people, that would be the topic of another discussion. All right, who else? Who would like to start with the floor? Giorgio, I know you had some questions.
Yeah, that's right. I think I'll just type it because it's actually relating to Access Web Apps, but it's about the section on the professional Access 2013 programming book, which has a few chapters that deals with Access Web Apps. I don't know whether you have it or not. But basically,
that's the book where Ben Clothier is a co-author on that book. He works for.
Yeah, that's right. So here's the question. Well, actually, I have three questions, but this is the first one.
All right, well, Giorgio's typing that in. Maria, do we have a question here from Mindea? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. What are the table limits? How many records?
I'm not sure about that with how many records you can get. I think that they are limited only by the not per table, but by the total size of the database. So I think that they are still limiting us on the web side to our couple megabyte total size for that. Do you know different on the web end?
Yeah, the Azure database that's created as part of this, there is a limit on there. But let me put it this way: if you're going to exceed that limit, SQL Server does a great job of storing data economically. And if you're going to exceed that limit, you probably reach a point in your app lifecycle where you probably want to use a .NET solution or a more robust web technology, because we're talking about millions of records. So if you're going to do something with millions of records anyway, you probably have a budget to do a more robust web app. Other than that, this should work fine for all the smaller databases out there. All right, so Maria, Giorgio just posted his question. Giorgio?
Yeah, I did. I actually posted it erroneously just for you, but now I've reposted it for everyone, so they can take a look at it if they have the book.
For the code used in this section, you can download the file. Turn book download. All right. So you're missing a file here. Lucy will reach out to Ben, who's a co-author of the book, so we can get you that file and or point to that file for you. Okay.
All right. I have another question. Let me just type it. Okay.
While we're waiting for that, do you guys like the topic? Did you like Maria's presentation? I thought it was a wonderful job, Maria, by the way.
Thank you.
Please let her know in the comments and the feedback. And also, please follow Maria Barnes. She does have a Twitter account. I forgot your Twitter account, but I'm linked to you, so I just put @ and it fills in the rest.
Yeah, it's and I should have added that to this slide, but it's M Barnes and then ATBBS.
M Barnes, A is in Apple, T is in Tom.
Let me put it in here in the chat here.
All right, great. So if you do like Maria, please follow her on Twitter. I'm sure she'll appreciate that. And also tweet about how you were able to see her at lecture lunchtime and how you like the presentation.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. We hope to see you next month.
Oh, so that's not a
No, we're not done yet, Maria. Can you still hold on for a few more questions?
Sorry?
Can you hold on to a few more questions, or do you have to go?
No, I'm okay.
All right, good. All right, so Giorgio, your second question is here. It's regarding the book, right?
Yeah, that's right. I was wondering whether the address that is mentioned in the book is actually still is usable or not, because it looks like that you need to, let me see, it says you need to basically have your ID identified by the made-to-order.sharepoint.com directory, but I don't know exactly how to go about doing that in order for me to be able to check out these charts that Teresa and the other co-authors have provided in the book. So, but I think
so when you click on the link, it's going to ask you for a few things. So this is another good question for Ben. So we'll get Ben to answer that for you. Do you have something regarding the material that Maria has? Nothing related to the book?
I'm sorry, was that a question for me?
Giorgio, do you have another question for Maria that's not related to the book? I know you got the book questions, but we'll get those answers for you.
Actually, the problem is that because of the fact that I just finished work, I had to skip about 20 minutes of the presentation. So I would have to look at the most of the recording. If you have it, I'll take a look at the recording, because I just I resumed watching the presentation about half an hour into it. So I think I missed.
I will try to get the presentation separated here into the part that I did cover and the part that I didn't, and then I'll post a PDF of it on the Access Lunchtime website here, and you can go over that as well. You know, obviously that doesn't. That won't show all the examples of actually doing things, but that'll give you the notes and the steps, and then you could watch the recording to fill in the blanks there.
That's on the Access User Groups lunchtime chapter?
Yes. Yeah. I'll upload it to there.
I don't know. It's a while to get the actual recording on the website, because it has to be edited, but usually we have a turnaround time of 3 to 5 days before we get on there. So just keep checking back.
I actually have the last question for Ben about the book, if he wants to take a look at.
Yeah, type it in the comments there, and then Lucy will get back to you with those answers.
There it is. There you go. I've just typed it.
Okay, good. So I'm sure Ben will be delighted to see that you read his book. Are you currently using Access Web Apps, Giorgio, in your job?
Actually, we are trying to see what because basically right now we have a kind of a hybrid system, which is a mixture of Access together with SQL Server. We are looking into, because obviously Access Web Apps is much more geared towards Azure, I think, because it's cloud-based. So we are kind of, my company is going through a deep rearrangement, transformation, and so we'll probably be a lot less dependent on any IT department as we are now, because right now we are kind of stifled by all these constraints that the IT department brings on us when Access is concerned. And so we are trying to see with the rearrangement of the company whether we have more leverage towards actually using Access and actually extending Access towards the web, or actually much more towards the cloud by using Access Web Apps. So we are just starting out, and we see it's interesting to see where all this thing can lead. Although it looks like that in Access 2016, they haven't done much as far as a lot of improvement as far as Access Web Apps is concerned. I think, I'm not sure. We haven't bought the Access 2016. So
no, there isn't an improvement. You don't have to buy the Office 2016 because this is all. Well, you probably could. They may have some features that work only in 2016, but I'm not aware of that. But the one question I ask you, what kind of company do you work with? Are you a manufacturing service company? What do you guys do?
We used to be we are in the renewable energy business. My company is in the green energy, as they call it. But we were actually part of a larger conglomerate whose main business was actually cement producing. Now, this Italian company, which was the fourth in the world, has been purchased by a slightly larger German company. So they're merging, but the buyers are not interested in renewable energy, and so we are staying with the investment company that was actually holding the shares of the larger company. So basically, it's kind of going it alone. We are going from being a part of a 20,000 people group to basically turning into a 80 people operations. And so it's,
the reason I say that is Access Web Apps is great for small applications that you can
I think so, yeah.
And that field, let's say, for example, you had a factory floor and you had a QA tester who's grabbing parts off the production line, measuring dimensions, and you want to be able to walk around the factory on a small tablet or a cell phone and make observations, quality control observations. You can record those observations in Access Web App, which will be uploaded to Azure, unless you have on-premise SharePoint site, which some of you may have.
Right.
But if you upload it to Azure, then you can link that back to a traditional Access application. So once they're done doing the factory tour, they can go back to their desk, launch a more robust Access application, which will import the data or link to the data in Azure, and then you can do much more complex things that you could not do with Access Web Apps. So
because
that's why we recommend Access Web Apps and data collection, which is great for, right? It affords you a lot of things that you can do. Obviously, you need internet connection, so if you're trying to do data collection out in the field where there's no internet, that argument breaks down.
Yeah, we actually see it much more. We actually see Access Web Apps as kind of an extension to what Access can do right now, because we actually feel that the integration, especially of Access with Excel, it cannot be matched. So I think that the combination of the two really, especially now that Excel also is delving into business intelligence and all that thing, that you can actually. I talked with Richard Love. I don't know if you heard him, if you know him. He's from so he's actually a lot more into Excel business intelligence. I think it was Power, something like that. Power Pivot, something like that.
Well, we gotta get going. Go ahead.
And he says that you can actually connect to the Excel's business intelligence from Access. And so I think that I think that the client is still very powerful. It's not all Access Web Apps. I think we consider Access Web Apps as an extension, not just as the main point, at least as my company is concerned, but we will see.
Well, we wish you the best of luck with that. And once again, thank you, Maria, for assuming the leadership role with the group. We think it's a great start. Thank you, everybody who joined us. Please consult with the AccessUserGroup.org website for future meetings. I have my SQL Server with Access occurring the second Tuesday of the month, next month in November. And next week I'll be at the Microsoft Worldwide Headquarters for the annual MVP conference, where I'm hoping to learn more about what's going to happen with Access